the most fabulous of all fabulous guests ever on any podcast. I can say that because it's true. We have the lovely TikTok goddess, Samantha. Is Previte how you pronounce your last name? Am I pronouncing it right?
Previte. It's Italian because, I look very Italian, but yes, Italian. So
that's my total guess that you were Italian. I was going to go 100%. Right with that.
Yeah.
100%. So
no, don't worry. No one has ever gotten it right on the first try. So it's
cool. I like it though. It's nice. It's just rolls off the tongue. Who is also, if you are listening right now, you need to follow her on TikTok because nowhere else will you get fantasy content with someone doing a handstand. Nowhere else, like across the floor. So do it now while you're listening. And then she also writes wonderful content for the New York Post and is a co-host for the Sleepers Brawl on the iHeartRadio. Samantha, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you much. And then, of course, we have the man who they're not mere words to describe him. I can't. There's so many. NFL Network fantasy analyst, Adam Rank, who is pop culture guru, who is the author and You'll Thank Me Later and Unpopular Opinions. And if you're not following him on Twitter or you don't have the NFL Network fantasy app downloaded, you're just missing out because he's the greatest. And I thank you so much for being here, Mr. Rank.
Oh my gosh, stop. You flatter me too much. I'm honored to be a part of the show. And what a panel that you have here. Listen, I'm in awe of Samantha. I'm here clout chasing is what I'm doing. This is amazing. So I appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you guys being here. And so quickly, we will do the format of the show is 4 downs. They have 4 questions that they will discuss among themselves. Some people call it debate. I call it a pleasant, polite discussion amongst themselves and the answers to the questions. And then they have a 4th down. After the 4th down, they can either kick the extra point, which is a predetermined question, which they probably aren't going to do, or they can go for the 2-point conversion, which is where they can expand on anything they want to for 5, 10, 15 minutes. Just get it off their chest. Just let it flow. So before we start, I have one question for each of you that I need to know the answer to, and we will start with you, Adam. I read in your bio that you started as an NFL intern. And then your internship was over. You just kept going back day after day until they hired you. I mean, that's awesome. Even if it's not true, it's awesome.
Thank you. I know it reads like a sitcom and it's something that doesn't seem believable, but yeah, I had interned for 3 summers or 3 years. And I was sitting there after my third summer. I didn't get a send, like the first couple, they'd give me send offs. I'd get swag. I'd get some cool stuff. And so, it's a big to-do, but my supervisor, a guy by the name of Chuck Garrity, was on vacation. And the Sunday afternoon, I was sitting at a bar in Newport Beach, a place called Cassidy's. And I told my buddy, I said, you know what? I go, cause I was getting paid like $8 an hour, 11, whatever it was. Like, I thought I was rich. I'm like, I'm making so much bank. And I told him, I said, you know what? I'm going to go back. I was beer mug and handling. I'm like, I'm going to go in tomorrow and see what happens. Like, well, I don't know, maybe I'll get paid for 2 more weeks. Chuck Garrity's out. So I went and I did it. And so what you would do is I'd walk around, and ask people, hey, do you need help? Do you need help? I got involved in this trading card set. And, so I was doing research for it. And when Chuck Garrity returned, he kind of walked by my office and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh yeah, man, Peterson's got me on this Ron Mix trading card set and I got to do it. And he's like, okay. And then, a couple months later, he showed up at my office and he goes, hey, he's like, I can't have you being an intern forever. And I'm like, oh, crap. Like, he called me the Cal Ripken of interns. I'm like, damn it. And they, no, like, we're hiring you. And he gave me a yellow Post-it note of like, here's what you'll be making. And this is it. I'm like, oh, my God, that worked. So I just didn't go away. I think that's like 95% of life is just like, don't go away. Just refuse to leave and good things can happen.
Just keep showing up. I love that. And I'm going to implement that in my life history from now on. And Samantha, I know that you've answered this like 1,000 times, but you started as an intern on the Hill. That's right? And I saw pictures of you at the Obama inauguration. Oh my God, you look fabulous. Yes.
Thank you. It's like the prettiest I'll ever look in my whole life. Like my life went downhill from there.
And then you went from that to writing fantasy for the New York Post, which is an obvious transition. Can you please tell us how that happened?
Yeah, and it all makes sense because I was a bio major. So this totally, the whole story makes sense.
There it is.
But in college, I was strongly encouraged to do a STEM degree, even though it wasn't what I wanted. It was never really what I wanted. So I did a bio and math degree. I graduated and I said, absolutely not going to med school, even though that was something that was pushed. And yeah, while I was in college, I was interning at various things. I interned at the state of Rhode Island, which is where I'm from. And then I interned on the Hill and at a political consulting company, wanted to go into politics. I was very politically driven in college and everything. So my first job out of college was political consulting. I worked in political data before, and then I switched over to like media in, I would say, 2017. I worked for the New York Times, and now I work for the Post. And my role at the Times and the Post is analytics. I'm the director of analytics right now at the Post, which has nothing to do with sports analytics, to be clear. It's just newsroom type stuff, like helping everyone in the newsroom kind of create the best content, understand why things do well, why things don't do well, help them track and understand their own stats and everything like that. And then, yeah, I would say about August of 2019, which is like less than a year and a half ago, one of the editors just offered for me to try to write something after I had been friends with them for the whole time I was there. And I was like, I'm probably going to be bad at it. So just like giving you a heads up. And it was just going to be a once a week type thing. And now I've hit 600 articles in that span. Wow. So I am super pumped, even though it is not an acknowledged part of my job. So I would say in some ways, Adam, I'm just showing up and just inserting myself there. And, someday, hopefully it'll be a full-time type thing.
That's amazing. I'm sorry, Gladys. I don't mean to interrupt. I mean, not enough to keep me from interrupting, but that is like a perfect. So I love everything about it. Like just the whole, like a bio major that is now interning on the Hill and is now all of a sudden writing fantasy content for the New York Post. That is, the way you, like literally the way you draw it up. Like that's, taking advantage of all the opportunities. That's amazing. That's amazing.
And the link to the Obama inauguration. Don't forget that.
That is great. Like I have an idea about like how old you are, and I don't want to out you or anything like that. But I'm like, I was gonna ask you if you were old enough to remember the Obama era, but now I'm like, oh,
it was a second inauguration, to be clear. I was 20, so I couldn't drink at the inauguration. I thought it would be ill-advised to whip out the fake ID in front of like Secret Service. So.
That happened to me at my internship, and I was at a going away party for somebody, and like it's open bar, and you're just sitting there, and you're like, I'm not 21, but like, okay, yeah, I'll take a Coors Light. Or no, I remember getting an Amstel Light and thinking I was like the baller, like I was such a high roller, like. I'm drinking Amstel Light. I would never in my normal life do this, but now I've got one.
And Coach Donnelly thinks that you and Adam should do a TikTok together, which I think would be superbly awesome. Quite honestly, I'm not going to lie.
We should definitely find a way to collaborate.
By the way, 100%. Like I'm in year 2 of working on my TikTok strategy. I was just telling somebody that there's not like, it's such a great avenue. And I think that TikTok is so perfect. And it's one of the things that I've admired what you've done, Samantha, is like grasping the newest technology and the cool, like really reaching, like every media company talks about like, we got to get younger people and they don't know how to do it. And you're like, well, find somebody who knows how to do TikTok. So I applaud you for that as well.
Thank you so much. It was a quarantine sort of thing. I mean, I may have gone a little crazy in all of quarantine, like we all have, of course. It's been very stressful. And I just thought it would be a fun thing to do. I was like, I can't dance, so it's got to be something else. And I thought it would be cool to use like the memes with fantasy football, and it's been great. It's a very small fledgling community, but still growing. And Gladys, I hope you make it on TikTok soon.
Yeah, let's collab. That'll be good.
All right, so we're going to start with the questions now, because if not, I have a feeling this is going to go way off rails. So first down question. It's Super Bowl week, right? So it's an obligatory Super Bowl question we have to ask. And we will start with you, Adam. It's a twofer. It's a two-part question. The first one, of course, who are you picking for the Super Bowl? And the second part of the question is, what player do you think is going to disappoint the fantasy community? So which player are people putting DFS money on that's just going to fall flat on his face?
Well, that's a tough one. It's kind of hard to figure out which way to go with this one, because the first name that comes to mind, because I was thinking about that, like Mecole Hardman is somebody who I feel like everybody's going to be on because they're trying to go contrarian, or Scotty Miller. Like they're trying to find, one of those guys who is going to hit. I don't know. I'm going brand names for the Super Bowl. Like I really think that it's going to come down to guys like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And on the other side, Chris Godwin, I think, has a pretty good opportunity as well. And I'm really looking forward to it. Like this is actually a Super Bowl that feels like a Super Bowl. Like we all love the Super Bowl, but this is one where it feels like there's two main eventers. Like no disrespect to the Atlanta Falcons, but you're like you're a mid-card football team. Like you're not one of the you're not one of the big one. Like if you're watching WrestleMania and Roman Reigns is fighting Ricochet, you're like, Ricochet's nice, like it's fun, but it's not the same as having like one of the immortals, and it feels like with this matchup, it's going to be, the GOAT and the kid and all that stuff. But ultimately, I think this is going to be Patrick Mahomes' time. Like it's so funny to think about Super Bowl 49 and the situation Russell Wilson was in. He was going for a second consecutive Super Bowl. He had an opportunity to knock off Tom Brady and kind of cement himself as the best quarterback in the game. He did not win that game. He threw the interception to Malcolm Butler. I do not believe that Patrick Mahomes is going to make that mistake, and I think Patrick Mahomes is going to take advantage of his opportunity.
Yeah, but that doesn't tell us who you think isn't going to take advantage of their opportunity.
Well, I weaseled out of it by saying sort of Mecole Hardman. I don't want to dog anybody. Like it's just
okay.
I'm not dogging. I think a lot of people are going to try to do a contrarian. They're going to try to go in on Mecole Hardman because they don't want to. They fear like they're trying to be contrarian or go outside of the box, and I think it'll end up blowing up in their face.
What say you, Samantha?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Mike Evans here. Just because I think he will have a high ownership percentage, and he's 8,400 on DraftKings right now. I just think everyone's going to be high on all these receivers. Hill, Kelce, if you include Kelce, he's basically a receiver. And of the four though, that said, I think the one with maybe the biggest bust potential is Evans. He's a little banged up. Breeland's been solid this season. He's also just the type of player that just always has the risk of catching two passes for 2 targets and 2 touchdowns, which I'm literally referencing the Denver game in week.
He's done that too many times.
Did that. So, he had an awesome game against Kansas City in week 12. So I don't necessarily think that any of the top 4 guys are going to bust, but of those guys, I'm going to say if anyone, it's going to be Evans. And for the game itself, I think that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs win.
Both of you are picking the Chiefs?
Yeah. Are you going to pick the Bucs, though?
I can't ever pick a Tom Brady team. I just can't.
There it is. That's fair.
I'm physically unable to do it. I would like to see Bruce Arians get a ring, but that would mean that Tom Brady has to win. So no, I'm going with the Chiefs too. Okay, second question. You both advanced on that one. Samantha, what fantasy football player are you absolutely avoiding in 2021, no matter what? No matter what.
Yeah, I hate to say that there are players that I would never draft, because like going into last year, I would say one of my biggest misses, like accountability wise, was that I was not high on Josh Allen going into the year. I don't think that, like, I think there are a lot of people that were at least are eating crow at this point. And I totally own that. Like, that's fine. I thought he was overvalued, but I ended up getting great value for him in an auction. I think you can really get weird values on people, especially in like a 16 team auction where everyone spends a lot of money on like the top guys and then everyone else is like $1. So, and just like the way that people spend down money it varies every draft. So I ended up getting him super cheap, obviously worked out. So like a guy that I would say I would try to avoid though is probably like James Conner or DJ Moore after he burns me all season. And he is my Carolina Panther. I am a tortured Panthers fan. So yeah, so I would say probably one of those guys, if like just try to avoid. But if they like fell to me and it was like really great value, I'm not going to ever say no.
Do you think Connor's going to be with the Steelers next year?
That's a really tough question. I don't know. I mean, I didn't think that nothing in that run game seemed to click this year. And it's weird because he like didn't really have a lot of competition. Like it wasn't like there was someone else in the backfields like Chase Edmonds, Kenyon Drake, something like that, some kind of dynamic like that. It really just wasn't like that. So I don't really know. Maybe not. Adam, do you have any insider information on it?
No, well, a big problem too, if he does return to the Steelers, is that they kind of need to rebuild that offensive line. I think that, for so many years, that offensive line has been great, like over like a span of quite some time with all these running backs who have been able to go in there and have success. I think, going back to Le'Veon Bell, even when he went down and D'Angelo Williams went in there and now James Conner and all these guys, they need to really look at that offensive line position. So that makes me very worried about the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's funny that you mentioned DJ Moore. I was tortured by him the entire year, and every week in fantasy I would let people know, because if I had DJ Moore in my lineup, he was not going to go off, but if I bench him, he was going to go off and have the career game. And I would tweet out on Sunday morning at 9:45 my time, I'm on the West Coast, like, I'm sitting DJ Moore, and then he would go out and have a good game, and people wouldn't catch up. Like they weren't understanding the game. Like, I'm helping you by like, oh, this aged poorly. Like, listen, guy, like I am doing that as a little bit in jest, but also letting you know because I have not gotten this right. But it lends to what you're saying, Samantha, because the guy I thought of immediately was Michael Thomas. And number two with Michael Thomas, there's the guy. Forget the guy who's on Instagram who's like, sheeple industry, like blah, blah, blah. You all like Michael Thomas. I'm like, congratulations for you predicting injuries. Like the dude was hurt the whole year.
Oh,
like,
fantasy football counselor. Is that?
Yeah, that's the guy. So that dude. So he's like, oh, you sheep. Like what? I'm like, bro, he was hurt. Like I wasn't advocating that you take him first overall or anything like that. But I had him and Devonta Adams. I had Devonta Adams as my number 2 receiver. And in most leagues, I was bypassing Michael Thomas to go with Devonta Adams, or actually going with Travis Kelce, because I thought it was important to lock in Travis Kelce because he is such an advantage to have on your team where you don't have to worry about streaming a tight end or doing anything like that. Where you're like, am I playing Dawson Knox this week? No, I got Kelce. Like, it's great. It's a luxury. But when Samantha was talking, it's making me think about Michael Thomas and players like that, or DJ Moore, who've burned people. And I think going into next year, a lot of people are not going to want to draft Michael Thomas. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be. It could end up being, maybe Jameis comes back. Maybe it's Taysom Hill. We don't know. And it could be a situation where guys like DJ Moore and Michael Thomas are great values. Like if I'm sitting there in the 3rd round or the 4th, and Michael Thomas is still there, like, yeah, I might take a chance on this. Like this seems like a pretty comfortable spot. So I agree with Samantha. I don't like saying never say never. And I will look for values. But I think in the first couple rounds, like I'm not looking at Michael Thomas.
So G-Man Jay, who is Jay, and he's like one of the hosts of one of the Going for Two Upside podcast with Upside, says, what if Watson is throwing to DJ Moore? So I'm guessing he's predicting Watson going to Carolina for some unknown reason. I don't know why.
I'd be surprised if they were moving on from Teddy Teddy Bridgewater so quickly. But I mean, obviously, I think that would certainly be an upgrade for Moore. But that said, it was a very curious way that Joe Brady seemed to use DJ Moore after a 1,000-yard season previously with a very shaky quarterback core the year before. So that's why I think everyone was so high on. There was a good thought process going into the reason that people had drafted him so high. It was just curious that they wanted to use Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel so much more when it did seem like Moore was the better receiver. So I'm not totally sure what that means, I guess, down the road. But certainly if Watson is throwing the ball to anyone, it's certainly an upgrade.
Yeah, that's a great point, too. Don't get mad at us. It wasn't Samantha and me that you should be mad. Be mad at Joe Brady. He's the one dialing up the plays. Kind of had DJ Moore out of position, too. Like, I thought it was weird the way he was using him as well. And I'm like, this is a pretty good receiver. Maybe you should throw him the ball. Like, I don't know. But, he won a national championship and I didn't. So what do I know?
Kevin S. wants to know, who do you guys think is going to be throwing to Thomas next season? So who do you think is going to be the Saints quarterback next season?
For the sake of entertainment value, I really hope it's Jameis Winston. Just for fantasy, we want him back. He's the gift that keeps on giving. He's going to throw 5,000 yards. And it's just fun. And it did feel weird that it took Sean Payton 18 weeks to realize that he's probably the better quarterback on their roster. I think everyone knows this, and I'm not super high on Taysom Hill, so I don't think he represents any kind of necessarily future for that team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I love the idea of having Jameis Winston be the starter. I think, again, why are we benching a guy who threw for $5,000, 30-30? Let's go. That's what we want to see. We want to see some football. Throw the ball. I would love to see that.
Okay, but it's a foregone conclusion that Breeze is gone, that he's going to retire, that he's out.
I've already written the article. It's ready to go. I think he's waiting till after the Super Bowl. He needs to have his own. It's admirable that he didn't do it in a time he let Phillip Rivers go out there and kind of take the stage a couple of weeks ago, and so he's probably just waiting. But I would be shocked if he returned.
I'd be shocked too, unless someone donates a new shoulder for him. And I just don't see the point. He's had such a great career and you could really see him struggling throughout the season. So at that age, he has no real prerogative to keep going, I feel like.
He gave it a good run. Golf claps, all that
It would have been a nice narrative, obviously, for him to go to the Super Bowl. Obviously, that's what he wanted, but it doesn't always work out, and it's still he had an amazing career, so can't knock him for that.
For sure.
So, okay, this question is slightly detrimental to Samantha since we found out she knows nothing about the Marvel universe, which
I didn't pick a Marvel guy.
I find hard to believe. That's a true statement. Anyway, so the third down question is, who is the most underrated hero in the Marvel universe, and why is it Black Widow? But you don't have to say it's Black Widow if you don't think it is. Adam Rank.
I thought this was a sleeper question of what superhero you would take, because I was my whole thing, my platform is Nightwing is the best sleeper, because a lot of people don't know that Nightwing was one of the first Robins. His name's Dick Grayson. He becomes Nightwing. There's actually times when Batman gets lost in time and he becomes Batman. He becomes Batman himself before he goes back to being Nightwing. I feel really weird talking about this in front of Samantha because she's this brilliant person who majored in bio. He's a political genius, and I'm sitting here touting the virtues of Nightwing. Listen, where's my life led me?
Goodness.
But I will say this. But as far as I'm so sorry for the Marvel universe. I'm gonna go with Spider-Gwen, Gwen Stacy. If you've ever seen Into the Spider-Verse, where they go through a number of different alterations of different Spider-Mans. There's Peter Porker. There's Noir Spider-Man, and of course we get Gwen Stacy becoming Spider-Man or Spider-Woman. Excuse me. And I think that anybody who is a fan of reading the comic books and remembers Spider-Man Blue, which is one of my favorite comics of all time, and Gwen Stacy. I know everybody loves MJ, but Gwen Stacy. So Spider-Gwen for me. And of course, my daughter, my 5-year-old, I'm actually excited because I'm more of a DC guy. So she's into Harley Quinn right now. But she does love Spider-Gwen. So I'm going to give her a little bit of a shout out. But Black Widow's great as well. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Okay, Samantha, what is your guilty pleasure when you're not snowboarding and or biochemistry or political science or fantasy footballing?
To be clear, everyone makes fun of me for the fact that I just like have zero pop culture knowledge. Like people are like, "Were you like Kyle XY? Were you like dropped here like an alien?" And you like, because I just don't get any references. I've never seen things like.
You just made a great reference.
But people told me that. Like that's the thing. So yeah, I mean, like I'm the worst possible trivia, like team trivia type person. I feel like Adam, that must be like where you really, really shine.
I have a lot of dumb knowledge. One time the wife and I'm sorry, I'm interrupting your answer, but the wife and I were doing a trivia night at a bar, the Irish Mist in Sunset Beach here. And everybody's got teams. And it was my wife and me just going, and it was one of those like Slumdog Millionaire things where it's like every category, the categories are like fantasy football, professional wrestling, Cal State school, like not quite that extreme. I know the Cal State schools one was definitely one of them because they're like, what is, like all the initials for CSUN, what university is that? And everybody's like, because they're all smart. So they've never heard of Cal State Northridge, but it's like one of those things. So sometimes I have my moments. I'm not great, but I have my moments.
Yeah, so I would say, like, other than snowboarding a lot, I do yoga. I love to work out. Guilty pleasures, like eating, enjoying a lot of alcoholic beverages, just trying new things like that. And then for like TV, I watch a lot of like TV that I've already seen, which is super lame. Like I'm rewatching Game of Thrones right now. So that's a guilty pleasure. I just like leave it on and kind of work or fall asleep. I don't have a lot of time that I'm just like sedentary and sitting and not doing anything. So it's usually when I'm just falling asleep.
So tell me your most underrated alcoholic beverage.
Ooh. The Negroni. I love that. It's probably my favorite beverage, though I'm kind of on the old-fashioned train right now.
Oh,
yes. So that the old-fashioned Manhattan are kind of like newer things that I've been getting into, but Negroni feels a little bit underrated, I feel like, and people sometimes associate it as like a effeminate drink, and I don't really think it is. I think it's a great drink, and everyone should enjoy it.
They think it okay. Adam, what's your? It's like almost pure alcohol. I don't know how you would think.
Right? Yeah.
I think it's because it's red, like or something like that. Like boys are like, ew, it's pink, or like, ew, it's red. There are so many guys that are so fragile that like will not touch anything that's pink or red.
That is the thing that bothers me the most because my daughter is older than my son. And we have hand-me-down stuffs, whether it's like a pink hoodie or, shoes with pink in it. I'm like, put the boy in that pink sweatshirt. I don't care because it's fine. I wear pink. I wear purple. Like, I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. And if you want to enjoy an apple martini or anything like that, like, oh, it's a girl, like, shut up. Like, it's just a dumb thing for people to say, to get so worked up over, like, oh, like, whatever. Just enjoy what you enjoy. You did mention Manhattans. That was something that I discovered because on my birthday was in December and my sister wanted to bring me, she's like, I want to bring you like a craft cocktail of something that you like normally don't drink. And I was like, and like, for whatever reason, Manhattan came to mind and it was delightful. I don't know if people consider that a girly drink or whatever, but you know what? I consumed it and I enjoyed it.
Well, actually, like Manhattan and old fashions are supposed to be manly drinks.
They're very like Don Draper
kind of
60s, like old
scotch and a cigar. Yeah.
That's by the way, the Don Draper is a pop culture reference.
I have seen Mad Men.
Yeah, you're good. Game of
seen
Thrones?
some things, but most things I have not seen. Like classic movies, you could probably name like 5 of them, and it would take me at least 5 to get to one that I've probably seen.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
No.
Oh, one of the classics.
Definitely not seen that one.
Yeah. I mean, I love movies, and I'm not even going to put that in there. So, really quick, Evan Ritter wants to know, if Brady wins, does he retire?
Ooh, I don't think so. I think he's going to go for at least one more year. I could see him trying to pull the Elway and going for back-to-back before he leaves. So I don't think we're going to see the end of Tom Brady just yet.
Yeah, I would agree. He, I feel like recently said that he would play till he's 45, and it almost just feels like he keeps pushing it, because I think he was saying like earlier that it was going to, I mean, maybe 44 or something like that. So it just feels like he's probably going to see how he feels this offseason. But based on the way that he's playing and the level of play that he brought to the Bucs this year, I don't see any reason that he would be retiring unless he like literally suffered some kind of catastrophic injury, which fingers crossed he does not.
But doesn't it concern you the amount of free agents they have, the amount of players they could conceivably lose? Like, he's not going to have quite the supporting cast that he had. Unless
they'll get people to come play in Tampa. If everybody left, like, people would be dying to go play with Tom Brady. Like, even if like Chris Godwin left, I think that, you look around some of the guys who are going to be potential free agents. I'm not saying that Allen Robinson would take less money or Will Fuller or one of those guys, but both of those players have been in situations where they have not won a Super Bowl, and especially for Allen Robinson, who's played with some of the worst quarterbacks going back to his time at Penn State. I could see, like, if they were like, hey, Allen, do you want to come play with the Buccaneers? He would gladly take that opportunity.
What are you saying about Brock Osweiler?
Awful. Like, completely miserable. Although Brock Osweiler did beat the Bears in 2018, which was especially concerning because I remember that morning when he was elevated to the starting role, like, all the guys on our show were like, oh my God, start the Bears defense. And I'm like, you guys shut up. You're jinxing the Bears so hard. And exactly, Brock Osweiler went out there and beat him. By the way, little secret on that one. Cody Parkey had a chance to win that game, but missed the field goal. I don't know. That seems weird, right?
Pain.
But if they win that game, which they should have done, then they would have been the number 2 seed that year, which means the double doink wouldn't have happened, at least not in the first round. Then they might have been playing host to the Rams in the divisional round. They would have beat them because they'd already beaten them earlier that season because they beat Jared Goff. And then they would have gone to the NFC Championship game and beat the Saints. Then they would have gone to the Super Bowl and lost to the Patriots. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying now.
Well, I think what would be awesome and what would make me cheer for Tom Brady sort of is if Larry Fitzgerald decided not to retire and went and played with him, just because I want Larry Fitzgerald to get a Super Bowl ring.
That would be like an NFL version of the Expendables.
Yes.
And Sam, Expendables is a movie with a lot of like boomer movie stars, and they come together. It's like the thing Stallone and Schwarzenegger, whatever. But yeah, that would be kind of fun. Like, get all the olds together and just try to make a super group.
That would be the most amazing thing ever. I would love it. Okay. The next question: are you picking Christian McCaffrey first pick next year? Is he 101? Even though he played like 4 games this year.
I think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who we're elevating to that number 1 spot. I mean, I really love Jonathan Taylor going into next year, but I don't know if I'm going to have the gall, the chutzpah to sit there and be like, yeah, I'm taking somebody other than Christian McCaffrey. I understand it was a disappointing season and, injuries happen and a lot of people were upset about it, but I still believe that he's the best guy and he's the guy that you want. He's the most, especially in PPR leagues and everything. I think I'm going with Christian McCaffrey again.
I'm saying hands down, he is still the 101. He's just 24. And look, I get it. I made this whole TikTok about being on the CMC roller coaster the whole season and how much he burned managers. Obviously not his fault, but
right.
That said, we're not talking about torn ACLs, things that I think will carry over to next season. I think it's easy that people like saw that all happen at once and like want to tag him as injury prone. And I'm certainly not trying to minimize what he went through, but it's an ankle injury and a shoulder injury. I don't think that, like, I think if the Panthers had been more competitive too, we might have had a different story here. Like, they have no reason to rush the most expensive running back in the NFL back prematurely when they're going to finish with like 5 wins. So, in the 3 games that he was healthy this season, absolute monster. Got eviscerated by him in 2 of those 3 weeks in one of my leagues. 76 touches for 374 total scrimmage yards, 6 touchdowns, average of 27.3 fantasy points in half PPR in those games. So I'm convinced that he will just come back with a vengeance next year and look healthy and sharp as ever. And to your point, it's not like there was someone that's going to take over and it's like the clear cut type person. Cause maybe it affects his value a little bit, but he was like in many tiers of his own basically last year, going this year.
He's his own category. Like, it's crazy. Even with like Dalvin Cook playing very well and some of the other guys, Aaron Jones had a decent year as well coming back. I was kind of surprised by Aaron Jones being as good as he was, especially with the Packers drafting a running back last year. But to me, it's still Christian McCaffrey. And if I'm sitting there at 1.02 and somebody's like, I'm never drafting CMC again, I'm going to laugh forever when I take Christian McCaffrey and I end up winning a league because of it.
So from this, I'm taking neither of you believe in the 0 running back strategy.
I feel like I'm 0 running back adjacent. Like it's kind of like, like when you talk about politics, a lot of people tend to go towards the middle, but you lean one way or the other. Which way you're sort of leaning. And I would, if I had to pick one, I would sort of lean to the side of 0 RB. But if I'm sitting there at 1.01, I'm not taking Travis Kelce. Like, I'm just not. I'm taking Christian McCaffrey, and I'm not thinking about it. But I also know that what we learned for people who had, and for whatever reason, I had a lot of shares of Christian McCaffrey last year, is that it's still workable to go out there and find those players who can help lead you to a fantasy title. Obviously Antonio Gibson was somebody who was drafted. James Robinson, depending on when you were drafting, was probably somebody who was drafted, but we did find other values where Jeff Wilson and Savon Ahmed, like these guys were carrying teams. Yeah. And who were the backup with the Cowboys too? Like there were guys, at the end of the year where you're like, God, I have so many running backs. Giovanni Bernard, like because Christian McCaffrey had been struggling the whole year and you never really replaced him. Like I had so many guys that I just realized 0 RB is still a thing. I'm adjacent to it, but I'm not a full-fledged, I'm not getting Tony Pollard. Thank you, Evan. But yeah, I lean that way, but I'm not going to fully, I'm not taking Christian McCaffrey. That's ridiculous.
I would not call myself 0 RB at all. I would say that in general, I probably go a little bit heavier or more aggressive on running backs. That said, I went super all in on Joe Mixon this year, which was a big miss, obviously. And this was a 16-team league that I spent a ton of money on him in this auction. I told you, everyone goes for a ton of money at the top, and then it's $1 people at all of the rest. So my second RB position was just streaming bums off the wire. And but guys like that just come out of nowhere. Obviously Savon Ahmed went undrafted in everyone's league, and there were people that you could definitely put in. So I would say that for me, I'm just not brave enough to go 6-7 rounds without taking a running back. I don't know exactly what everyone considers 0 RB, because there's some dispute about that, how how many rounds you have to wait to be considered pure 0 RB. But I could not see myself waiting 6 or 7 rounds before I take a running back. I would have an ulcer, I think.
You get a panic attack at some point. You're like, this just seems too weird. But that's the thing too. If you're at the top of the draft and you draft McCaffrey or something like that, it really, you have the luxury of waiting. Like you can actually go and fill in your other spots because you're like, okay, at least I have one spot that's locked in, and you should feel pretty confident in yourself that you're going to find another running back at some point. By the way, I did a fantasy hockey league with like a dynasty, and I don't know that much about hockey. So I asked my friend, I'm like, who's the Christian McCaffrey of hockey? And it's a guy named Connor McDavid. I'm like, I'm spending every buck on this guy, and it's worked out. So I don't know. So I feel like that just solidifies to me, like Christian McCaffrey is just in a world of his own, and you're just, I don't know.
Are you in Scott Fish, Adam? I assume you are.
Yes.
Okay. So it was just one thing that like after all the drafts had finally finished, I don't know how fast your team, your like division was to draft, but there were some really slow ones. And then afterwards you could like see what percentages like people took, like, and I think it was like 4 people total out of like 1,400 teams that did not draft Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was definitely low.
So G-Man J wants to do an Expendables NFL team, and he wants to add Frank Gore and Adrian Peterson to the Larry Fitzgerald and Tom Brady.
Yes.
But Evan wants to know, does Alvin Kamara drop in the rankings due to the quarterback situation, or do the Saints maybe utilize him more? If that's possible, which it might not be.
I don't know. He's so talented. I think those couple of games where Taysom Hill was the quarterback and Alvin Kamara didn't score touchdowns because Taysom Hill was, being super selfish and doing it on his own. I think that's just kind of an aberration. Like that's an outlier. Like, go ahead. Unless I can't imagine. I just can't see going a full season with Taysom Hill as your quarterback. Like it's not going to happen. We tried this with Tim Tebow. I don't know why we're trying to do this again. Like you found the perfect situation. He's a gimmick player, like not in a bad way, like no disrespect, but you have a very specific role. Like you're a problem. Like when the team can't game plan for you and you're just going to come in at certain situations, that's very difficult. That change of pace is really hard to defend. But if you got a full week of like, we got to stop Taysom Hill, you're going to stop that guy.
Yeah, I did feel like he was a liability when he was actually playing. And it does feel like Sean Payton's just trying to do this like weird galaxy brain thing. Like I can take this player that no one else sees is good and like make him good. And he's definitely forcing him in situations that just feel unnatural. So it feels like he just needs to accept that he's that role and that's fine. And, he should be pretty happy about that considering the money he's gotten out of this and what he's leveraged out of a career that I don't think that people ever really, he's like undrafted. So, I think he's done a lot for himself.
No, for sure.
Adam, Jay said that he watches hockey. So if you need advice, just give him a shout out.
Thank you. Yeah, I might have to hit you up. I just have Connor McDavid and my team's in second place right now. So I feel pretty good.
Yeah, you should. So we're going to go back to football real quick. And this is a question that was on the questionnaire but wasn't on your fourth thing. But besides Trevor Lawrence, which rookie are you targeting, or which rookie do you think is going to be good enough to play on your fantasy team next year? Or do you think Trevor Lawrence is going to be good? Would you draft Trevor Lawrence?
I feel like people will remember what happened this year with Justin Herbert and be like, yeah, I kind of want to have him just on reserve just to see what happens. Urban Meyer, a whole unknown. And it's worth, using a late round flyer on somebody like that. But I don't know. It would, I'm kind of into it. I'm kind of not. But quarterback is just one of those positions that, there's so many good guys out there that you really don't have to spend too much time or too much draft capital or anything like that. But as a late round flyer, I could see myself doing it.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I definitely wait on quarterback really, really late. So I could see him being maybe like a second quarterback that you take in like round 14 or something like that. But in terms of other rookies, I guess the obvious answers would be like Travis Etienne, who I think will be a viable fantasy running back. regardless of really where he ends up. I think he's super, super talented. And then Devonta Smith, who everyone seems to think is too skinny. I think that's an interesting narrative. Everyone's like obsessed with people's body types, like on Twitter. Like we get obsessed with AJ Dillon's thighs, and like it seems to like interestingly like snowball, and it seems a little bit overblown. So I think he'll be great in the NFL as well.
Yeah, I love him, and I know that he gets mock draft a lot to Miami because they want to have him reunited with Tua Tagovailoa. So they're like, oh yeah, this is going to be a great round. So I kind of like that, because if he walks into a situation where he's going to have an opportunity to see a lot of targets, I would like to focus in on him and his teammate Harris. Another guy, because it depends on where the running backs fall. You know, like it all depends on who's going where, who's going to get an opportunity. It's so difficult because there's some good running backs coming in, but who's going to have an opportunity to go in there and get a lot of touches? I thought coming into last year that Jonathan Taylor was walking into the best situation because
even with Marlon Mack.
Yeah, like, well, Marlon Mack's a free agent, so he could be gone.
Oh no, I meant like Jonathan Taylor walking into that situation.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, because like they draft him for a reason, and it burned me because they didn't use AJ Dillon the way that I thought they were going to as much. But I think Jonathan Taylor, and of course a lot of it was because Marlon Mack went down with an injury. But I thought that with his ability to run the football, playing behind a good offensive line for a team that does want to run a little bit more, they have a non-mobile quarterback, or they did with Phillip Rivers, but I thought that he had a really, really good chance of breaking out. And we saw it at the end of the year. Again, it's all going to come down to situation and where these guys go in the draft. So it's kind of a cop-out to say that way, but I think that ATN and Harris and those guys are worthwhile looking at, especially if they get into a situation where they can get a lot of opportunity.
I love that you're on team Jonathan Taylor. I feel like he was a very divisive player on Twitter this year. So, and I was so into him. I mean, like I was getting ridiculed in mock drafts and everything. Like I took him, I think it like the last pick of the second round, and like I got like roasted on Twitter, especially by Zero RB Twitter. That was like, you read for him way too much. And I'm like, it's whatever.
No, I like it. I think that's great. By the way, for the NFL media group, NFL.com, we had to pick our awards winners, and we were doing the offensive rookie of the year. And everybody's voting for Justin Herbert. Maybe there's going to be a few Justin Jefferson people. So to tweak everybody who's a Zero RB enthusiast and to upset the 4 Charger fans who exist in this world, I said Jonathan Taylor. Like, I thought he had a good year. I just want to give him a little bit of love, especially for the running backs don't matter crowd. Like, that stuff kind of annoys me. So I give a lot of love to Jonathan Taylor. So I'm glad that we're simpatico there.
Well, I know that the Fantasy G-Pod, who loves Jonathan Taylor, he was on Jonathan Taylor every Sunday morning. It was his guy. So you guys aren't alone. There were other people that were right behind you, loving it. Okay, so now, Samantha, do you want to take an extra point, or do you want to go for the 2-point conversion and just get something off your chest?
I guess 2-point conversion. I don't know if I have necessarily anything like really fun to talk about. I just did a little mini interview thing with The Athletic that went live today, which was super fun, about silly prop bets. And I went, so like as normal people do on Monday nights that are really well adjusted, I spent my night researching Gatorade colors, Super Bowl squares, really, really cool person. So, I mean, it's like, so orange, if you're curious, would be my Gatorade pick at plus 140. My instinct was to say match the color schemes and like go with red. But in looking at years past, the Gatorade colors only matched the team color 3 times since 2001. And orange was the color that the Chiefs used last year. And I'm thinking them to win the game. But if you like the Bucks, the Gatorade color was purple the last time they won the Super Bowl. Oh. And that is plus 800. So you get a lot of good value there. And then another with the squares. If you guys are curious, if you can choose squares, I found that the 3 best squares are 7-0, 0-0, and 7-7, favorite to underdog, based on a Harvard study that they weighted all the frequencies based on the frequencies of the ending score of different quarters and everything like that. And I thought that was super interesting. So if you guys are curious, doing anything fun for the Super Bowl, those would be the picks that I would have.
Wow. So this is how you spend your Monday night?
That is how I spent my Monday night. Yes.
That's awesome.
From The Athletic asked me to kind of do that last minute, and I had to answer like 14 very random questions, like things about like national anthem, like okay, one of them was about like the first song that The Weeknd will play. I literally know one song by The Weeknd, and it wasn't on this list, so I was like, oh, okay. So I like looked at Spotify and just found like the one that was the most popular.
Oh my gosh.
I know, very lacking, very disappointing.
You're not even familiar with The Weeknd? Like,
not really. I'll be honest, I really like country music, and I don't listen to a ton of music, so I would say that that's usually what I throw on.
what do you mean you don't listen to music? Like everybody listens to music.
I do, but I don't necessarily, like, I don't feel like there are people that know artists, like follow them and all that, and I just feel like I usually use like a Spotify radio, or I make playlists as I go along, but I don't even know who sings the songs a lot of the times. So like I listen to music in the sense that like, yeah, it's on when I'm in the car or like walking around, but it's not like a huge thing for me, I guess.
You have a cat, right? Don't you have a cat?
I do have a cat.
So when you go on these snow things, you don't leave music on for your cat?
No, I don't. Am I supposed to? Someone should tweet me if I
music on it, or like the Animal Planet or something, so they can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, entertained.
Entertained. I used to do that for my dog. You know, when we had a dog, we'd leave the TV on. Yeah.
I don't leave it on Animal Planet, but I do leave it on music, like the music channel, so they like, pop hits or something. Oh, your poor cat's like sensory deprivation. So when you come home, you go,
Pretty much, yeah. She's like,
you're neglecting your cat because you don't like music, so now your cat doesn't get to listen to music. Like, that's not fair.
Exactly.
I'll have to throw on some like Keith Urban next time I leave, or Blake Shelton. Yeah.
Like the, what is it? Blue Isn't Your Color?
Love that song.
Oh my God. That is a great song. And I'm not really a country person, but that is a great song. Okay, Adam, I'm not even going to ask because I know you're going to go for the 2-point conversion.
Yeah, for sure. I want to tell people not to bag on country music, first of all, because I know a lot of you probably tell that to people. They're like, oh my God, you like country? Anything but country. Like, stop it. Like, why? I don't understand why people always have to try to take down like something that you like. Like, you like country music, like, cool. Like, you should enjoy it. You should listen to it more. Like, it's fun or whatever. Like, why people have to make that? Like, I remember when I used to be able to talk to people or talk to neighbors or do something like that. And you would be talking about whatever. And you're like, hey, like my favorite Mexican place here in where I live is a place called Don Ramon's. And like some soccer mom would just interrupt, like, oh my God, I hate that place. Blah, blah. I'm like, who cares? Like, I wasn't even talking to you. I don't even know why you're in this conversation. Like, why are you in? Who cares? Like, so Samantha, when you say like, I know, because I just know that there's people out there who every time you mention that you hate country music, they make a face. How do you listen to that? I don't know, because I enjoy it. That's how I listen to it, because I enjoy it. And I want to tell people that's a thing that I would like to get out there is like, don't apologize for what you like. I like wrestling. I don't care what you think of it. Not you specifically, but like the general world. Like, I tweeted about wrestling the other night. Like, how do you watch that? That's all fake and scripted. I'm like, I don't know. When I was watching The Mandalorian and Luke Skywalker shows up, by the way, spoiler alert. Like, I went nuts. I went crazy. And guess what? It's fake. It's an actor named Mark Hamill. And you know what? He was reprising a role that meant a lot to me as a child. And so I enjoyed it. And it's the same thing with wrestling or whatever shows you like or whatever. And like, if I don't like something, don't be offended. Like, I know you mentioned Game of Thrones like that. I watched it and it just really didn't appeal to me. So I stopped watching it after a few episodes, and people act like I have insulted their child. Like, how do you not like Game of Thrones? Like, I just didn't enjoy it. I don't know. Like, I'm sorry. Am I sitting here at 11:30 at night still watching Friends reruns? I am. But you know what? I make no apologies, Because sometimes I just want something I don't have to concentrate on. Like I might be sitting there looking at Etsy and trying to find vintage 70s golf polos. I don't want to have a show distracting me while I'm doing that. And that's now something that I'm into because like I'm been playing a lot of golf and I'm like, I want to have like these old school like clothes like my parents wore and stuff like that. So it's like something that I'm into. But like whatever you like don't ever apologize for it. And that's my message. That's my PSA. That's my TED Talk or anything for today.
I just have one question. Do you wear like the checkered shorts?
That's, I'm very, very willing to wear bold colors. Like I don't mind rocking a fuchsia shirt. We talked earlier about like I'll wear pink and purple and pastels and stuff like that. I really don't get patterny. So I'm more like you'll see me in like a coral, maybe a pair of coral pants, but they won't be checkered. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. I totally hear you. Yeah, I got you. Okay, so that actually is pretty much the show, except I have one thing really quick. So the fantasy football community is huge. Like it's huge and it's diverse and it's wonderful and sometimes it's not so wonderful. But there is a person on fantasy football. Her name is Bonnie. You can find her on Twitter at Fantasy Queen B, just the letter B, not B written out. And she has a friend whose dog has been diagnosed with leukemia. And if you go on her timeline, it has the GoFundMe page. And I know that it's been a rough year for everyone. Like the bar I work at, the bar I bartend at, hasn't reopened yet. So if you can't afford to give to a GoFundMe, that's cool. There's no judgment, but you can retweet it. So somebody maybe on your timeline can, give to the GoFundMe for Enzo. That's the dog's name, by the way. The dog's name is Enzo, which I love. And then maybe on your Facebook page, just so we can help one another out because, if we're not here to help one another out, then why are we here? Why are we here? And I want to especially thank Adam for not punking me for like coming on the show.
What does that say about my reputation that you thought I was going to punk you?
That's so fabulous that people don't believe you actually want to be on their show. That you are just that fabulous. That's what it says, because you are that fabulous. And I want to thank Samantha for being on because she is also that fabulous. And I'm telling you right now, go to her TikTok. It's at Sam, how do you pronounce your last name?
Previte.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, it's just Previte. So SPrevite on TikTok. Yeah,
so go to her TikTok page and you will not regret it. I'm telling you, she did fantasy projections doing a handstand, walking across her living room. It was the greatest thing I've ever seen. And I could not do it. So could you? Probably not.
No.
It was just a request from someone. That wasn't like a random thought. So, I take requests if you guys have anything cool that you think would be funny to see. She'll do it. She's great. And I'm telling you, if you guys aren't following Adam, why aren't you? Because that's just ridiculous right there. He is like the complete person. I'm in awe. I am. It's true. It's a true story.
You're too kind.
No, actually, I'm not. I'm just a terrible person, but you can't. Thank you guys again for joining us. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate each and every one of you. And remember, if you can, Twitter, Fantasy Queen B, help out a little bit. Love you all. I will see you Monday. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.